We are now leaving adding and subtracting fractions and we're moving into multiplying fractions. We're going to start with something very, very simple. So what I have is a fraction multiplied by a whole number, but I need this to be a fraction. So anytime I have a whole number, I'm just simply going to put it over 1. So what I have here is 5 over 8 times 24 over 1. I always put it over 1. That way I can multiply straight across without any problems. So I know that 5 times 24 would equal 120 over 8. Now, if you remember from adding and subtracting fractions, that your numerator is not supposed to be bigger than your denominator. That still rings true when you are multiplying. Now, I could sit and I could subtract 8, and that would give me 112 over 8, and I could subtract 8 again, that would give me 2, and I could keep going and keep going because you could see this numerator is much bigger than my denominator. But I'm going to cut a corner. I'm just going to divide and see how many times it goes into 120. So I think to myself, 120 divided by 8. 8 goes into 1, not at all, so I'll put my placeholder. 8 goes into 12, 1 time. Then I subtract 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. Oops, sorry, that was supposed to be a 0. 120, 120. Okay, so 12 minus 8 is 4. Bring down my 0. How many times does 8 go into 40? Goes into it 5 equal times with nothing left over. So my answer is 15. It goes into it 15 equal times and there isn't a fraction. Now eventually we will see a fraction, but for today's assignment, it's going to be pretty common that you end up with a whole number as your answer. Let's look at another one. Again, I have a whole number, 35, multiplied by a fraction, 2/5. So I want to make this a fraction. Do you remember what you do? You immediately put 35 over 1 times 2 over 5. And then I simply do 35 times 2 and 1 times 5. So what I get if I multiply 35 times 2 equals 70. And of course 1 times 5 equals 5. Again, you can see that your numerator is much larger than your denominator. So instead of going minus 5, minus 5, minus 5, instead of doing that, I'm going to take the shortcut. I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 5 go into 70? So I'm going to divide 70 divided by 5. 5 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 take away 5 is 2. Bring down my 0. How many times does 5 go into 20? It goes into it 4 equal times because 5 times 4 equals 20. Sorry, I'm running out of space. So my answer is 14. It is very common that you will not see a fraction in your answer. For now, we're just trying to get you into the habit of following the rules of multiplying fractions and whole numbers. And for today's assignment, you will end up more than likely with a whole number. Tomorrow we'll look at what happens if you end up with a remainder. Your remainder will end up being your fraction. But for today's assignment, a whole number will end up being your answer.